On CNN, they were discussing the Democratic primary, and they decided to yearn for the days of less democracy. Interesting.
When you look at the primaries, people say so many people, Bloomberg coming in. Is this more chaotic? What does it look like?
I mean, the terrible thing, I'll have to admit, every now and then when I look at the craziness of the primaries, I wish we could go back to the old convention system. I mean, just think about it. We wouldn't start the election until the summer. The conventions would choose somebody. Then in September, Labor Day, it would begin. It would be over in November. And we'd have lives in between all these elections. Of course, it was Teddy Roosevelt who wanted the primary system in order to beat Taft in 1912. And we were talking about this last night. The New York Times printed an editorial because the campaign between Teddy and Taft, the first primary system, was so awful that the New York Times said, if this is the first presidential primary as an experiment, we hope it's the last. This is embarrassing. Foreigners must be laughing at us. This is not a rational procedure. It's a mob. There is a problem with the way the primary system is set up. Of course, we're not going to go back. It's democratic to have more people vote. But how are we judging the candidates who are in these primaries? How they do in a debate? Who zings who? That's nuts. They're not going to be doing that when they're president. Mm-hmm. How much have they got a public opinion poll with them, or how much money have they raised? We should be looking at what kind of leaders they've been in the past. They've all come from somewhere: governors, mayors, senators, congressmen. We don't just need a magazine article. We should be talking constantly. What kind of team do they have around them? Do they share credit? Do they shoulder blame? Do they have humility? Do they have empathy? Do they have resilience? Are they accessible? All of these, what's their ambition like? We should know these things. It's what we should be asking them in the debates. You know, have you failed and how have you done that? One question was asked, but I'd love to see those leadership things as an index for judging them.
I mean, that's like, put that response in the dictionary under elitist. Because that's it right there. Even the criteria that she lays out is obnoxious. Because it's a luxury to not have to worry about policy. And she didn't mention anything regarding policy. She didn't say, what's their take on unions? What's their take on Medicare for all and healthcare? What's their take on a living wage? What's their take on paid leave from the workplace? Paid vacation time, paid maternity leave, paternity leave, paid family time. She didn't say any of that. How are they as a leader? Do they show the blame? Yeah. I'm not, the vague criteria annoy me to no end because that's always in the eye of the beholder. It is massively subjective. What's not subjective is the tangibles. Tell me what you're for. That's not subjective. Then we log that in the old memory bank or we write it down, and then when you either push for it or don't push for it, I either go after you or give you credit. It makes sense. But the whole, like, what are their leadership qualities? Yeah. There have been, silent, strong leaders and loud, aggressive leaders, and some of them are good and some of them are bad on both sides of that. So that's all subjective. That's all in the eye of the beholder. But let's put aside that part of the conversation, because the more important part of the conversation is, you heard it. She was like, I yearn for the days of the old convention system, where the party leaders would pick who would be our nominee. It says a lot that you yearn for that. And her reasoning, oh my God, it's like a long process. And it's messy. So what? Who cares? Oh, it's long and it's messy. I don't know if you've been paying attention. The Republican primary in 2016 was maybe the longest and the messiest, and they won. That's not a point. It's long and messy, and I don't like it. Okay, who cares? I don't care if you like it or don't like it. It is a more democratic process. And by the way, one can argue, and it's not only one can argue, one should argue because it's true. It was, as Chomsky says, the shenanigans of the party managers that led to Donald Trump winning last time. Why? Because the DNC did the thing that you kind of wish that they would do, which is they get together and they pick who's going to be the nominee. And wow, would you look at that? They picked Hillary Clinton. They did everything they possibly could to put their finger on the scale to make it Hillary Clinton. And then they got Hillary Clinton. They did the Pied Piper strategy to try to raise up Donald Trump. And then they got Donald Trump. And then Hillary lost to Trump. They thought, oh my God, there's no way Trump could be Hillary. And then he beat Hillary. So if the party managers got to pick who they wanted, and they kind of did in 2016, well, we saw how that worked out. So maybe, just maybe, the elite assholes behind the scenes don't know anything and know a hell of a lot less than your average voter. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not one of those people who, acts like the voters are always right and they're above reproach and they've never gotten anything wrong. That's not true. But when it comes to voters, a majority of the time, will they be in favor of things that improve their lives? Yes, they will. That's a totally different thing. I think it's totally fair to call voters ignorant in the U.S. because in many ways they are ignorant. They can't answer a lot of basic questions about how our government functions, basic questions about the history of the United States or the different presidents or whatever it might be. So they're ignorant, but ignorant is not stupid. That's not the same thing. And I guarantee you the voters are not stupid. They generally know what's in their best self-interest, or the majority do. Okay? Most of the time, the majority knows. So I think that the wisdom of the voters is worth a hell of a lot more than the non-wisdom of the party elites who always screw it up. Why? Why do they always screw it up? Because party elites are wired to do what is best for party elites. So all of those DNC party elites knew if Hillary wins, who's going to be in her cabinet? We're going to be in her cabinet. If Bernie wins, we're all fired because we don't believe in what Bernie believes in. So it was more about careerism, narcissism, self-aggrandizement, corruption, nepotism. It was about all that stuff. It wasn't about what's best for the country. How do we fix the country? What's the best way forward? What's a fair, open process? What's a democratic process? It wasn't about any of that stuff. Hey, at least they're being upfront now. They're being upfront. They're being honest. They want those party managers to run everything, even though that's what happened in 2016, and it led to Donald Trump.